Just as he finished his warm-up, he noticed a prisoner approaching with a threatening look. Sensing something was off, he glanced around and realized the guards were deliberately avoiding eye contact. At the same time, 2 inmates moved in, revealing sharpened bed frame rods and crude makeshift knuckle dusters. That's when it clicked, something was about to go down. Calmly, he stepped over to the barbell, grabbed his clothes, detached a weight plate, and wrapped it up. In his hands, even a towel could turn into a deadly weapon. Thanks to his deadly skills, the attackers didn't stand a chance. Before you could even finish half a cigarette, they were all on the ground, moaning in pain. That brutal man is Mando, 25 years old, in the movie Bad Boys. Under the manipulation of his biological mother, Arita, Mando was led astray and ended up killing several elite officers involved in an anti-drug operation. Even the seasoned police chief, Hor, was killed by him. Though he later reunited with his father, Mike, Mando's sins couldn't be forgiven. In the end, it was Mike himself who sent him to prison. For years have passed since then, and the Bad Boys story moves into part 4. This time, they're facing a whole new level of trouble. Mike and Marcus are still riding together, and now they must team up with Mando to take on what's ahead. Let's not waste any more time. The movie officially begins, and now over 50, Mike has finally found his peace. He marries Dr. B, the same doctor who cared for him in part 3, and they embark on a happy life together. Some thought Mike would end up with Captain Rita, but surprise, she's now dating the mayor of Miami, Locke. The 2 attend Mike's wedding, bringing along Hor's daughter, Judy, and Marcus's granddaughter, Canley. Marcus proudly introduces them to everyone and even invites little Canley to say a few words. The grandpa-granddaughter bond was touching. "If Grandpa were here," she said, "he'd tell you all, don't mess this up." Glasses clinked, blessings poured in, and soon the dance floor lit up with celebration. Marcus, as usual, was the star of the show, busting his best moves in the middle of the crowd. But just as he was feeling himself, his face suddenly twisted in pain, and he collapsed. Mike rushed over and began CPR. In his unconscious state, Marcus found himself standing alone on a desolate beach. There, he saw Hor, who had long passed, waiting for him. "It's not your time yet," Hor said, stepping close and whispering something in his ear. Marcus smiled brightly. Moments later, he woke up in a hospital bed with the same smile still on his face. Out on the rooftop, as Marcus basked in the joy of being alive, a helicopter slowly descended onto the building. Meanwhile, across the city in a shadowy part of Miami, the most notorious drug lord in Mexico, Douglas, stepped out of the aircraft. Accompanying him was Walker, a banker known for laundering money for the cartels. As soon as they entered the room, Douglas tossed a business card on the table. It was a photo of the late Hor. He ordered Walker to wire money into Hor's offshore account. "And what do I get from this?" Walker asked. Douglas didn't bother answering. Instead, he called over Walker's girlfriend and threatened to spill everything to Walker's wife if he didn't comply. Facing both fear and fury, Walker had no choice but to transfer $20 million as ordered. Once the deal was done, Douglas eliminated Walker, and his girlfriend too. Business is business, right? The next morning, while Mike was working out, his phone buzzed. He checked it, only to be bombarded with breaking news headlines. Hor exposed as a traitor, collaborated with drug traffickers while in office, helping smuggle tons of cocaine into the US. The media claimed he made a fortune off the operation. Shocked, Mike and Marcus rushed to the police station and stormed into a meeting. They didn't believe Hor could ever do such a thing. But FBI Director Gray insisted that the evidence was overwhelming. He laid out connections between past drug operations and Hor, revealing that someone had been leaking intel to the cartels. 2 weeks ago, the cartel's money launderer was found dead, apparently from a love affair gone wrong. At the scene, they found his phone, which contained chat logs and bank info linking him to Hor. Even with all the evidence, Mike and Marcus refused to believe their old friend was dirty. Mike even nearly threw hands with Gray over it. Sensing things were getting out of control, Rita stepped in and separated them. Just then, Judy, Hor's daughter, entered the room. As his legal heir, she demanded to know the full basis of the charges against her father. Mike tried to warn her to stay out of it, for her own sake, but she shut him down. "If it weren't for your damn son, my dad would still be alive. If I ever run into that bastard, I swear on my father's name, I won't let him live." Humiliated, Mike stormed out, pulled away by Marcus. Now they had a new goal: find the truth and clear Hor's name. Their investigation led them to Mando, Mike's own son, currently serving time in a federal prison in Florida. During their talk, Mando revealed that Hor was never a traitor. In fact, he had been secretly investigating the cartel. That's why he was targeted for assassination, because someone inside the police force wanted him silenced. I saw that guy once, Mando said, but I don't know his name. Wait, someone in the force? What do you mean? It's a game, and you don't even know the rules yet. One of your own is playing dirty. Can you recognize him? Of course. My mother. She's the one who set me up, and probably him too. While Mike and Marcus were digging for answers, Douglas and his crew were also on the move, trying to destroy any incriminating evidence Hall might have left behind. His men hacked into Hall's devices and found the encryption to be surprisingly weak. Just as they broke into the laptop, it auto-sent a file. Something just got transmitted. I'm tracing it. The file went straight to Mike's phone. He and Marcus pulled over and opened the video. It was a secret message Hall had recorded before his death. In it, he said he knew his time was short because a traitor had infiltrated the force. The key to the case lies with someone codenamed Cola the Giant. The video suddenly cuts off. What did he mean? Who's this Cola Giant? Frere, oh my god. Elsewhere, Douglas had tracked the phone signal and pinpointed the recipients of the message, Mike and Marcus. But instead of ordering a hit, he told his men to keep an eye on them. Like watching goldfish in a bowl, just waiting to see if they'd sink or swim. Not long after, Mike and Marcus arrived at an art gallery on the outskirts and met with Fletcher. Fans of the first film will recognize him instantly, once a prisoner, but with hacker skills sharp enough to reprogram your microwave if he wanted to. Howard had recruited him to the team for a reason. Mike and Marcus came straight to the point, but Fletcher dodged their questions. Dude, you're a hacker, not an actor in a drama. He admitted Howard had asked him to hide an investigative file, but refused to reveal where it was. That's when Marcus, who has the patience of a cracked phone battery, pulled his gun. Knowing their personalities well, Fletcher was just about to give up the location, and then, bang. A shot was fired. Wait, what? Him? No, not Fletcher. It was Douglas. Marcus spotted him retreating and immediately drew his weapon. Douglas's men opened fire in the narrow hallway, and chaos erupted, thanks to the gallery's conveniently maze-like design, probably made for moments like these. Neither side gained an edge for a while. But Mike and Marcus's grit and combat instincts eventually forced the thugs to retreat. The two chased after them, but the enemy sped off like they had a turbo GPS installed. Marcus didn't hesitate. He jumped onto the hood of a passing car and took off in pursuit. Meanwhile, Mike was reloading when suddenly he felt dizzy, so dizzy he dropped the magazine. Bro, he wasn't weak, just a little motion sickness at the worst possible time. That's when Douglas gunned the engine and came straight at Mike. In the end, all they could do was watch helplessly as the drug dealers and their crew got away. Maddening, isn't it? Back in the gallery, while forensics were combing the crime scene, they uncovered a QR code cleverly hidden in a wall painting. Okay, now pause. Zoom in. Enhance. Click. Boom, interactive clue mode activated. They scanned it, and with the help of a tech expert, unlocked another video left behind by Howard. In it, he laid out more details of his investigation. About 9 years earlier, Howard discovered that several high-ranking officers had begun working with a drug cartel. He quietly started digging, but just as he closed in, someone kept leaking intel. It was like trying to solve a murder mystery where your teammates keep spoiling the ending. Howard brought in 2 retired colleagues to help, but shortly after, both were killed in separate car crashes. Yep, or barely retired, permanently retired. At one point, Howard considered handing the case over to Mike and Marcus, but he held back, afraid they'd become the next targets. Now that he was gone, uncovering the traitor was up to them. Then, in a way only Mike could understand, Howard gave a cryptic clue about where the report was hidden. Mike quickly figured it out, some kind of inside joke only those who'd fought side by side would recognize. A real code between brothers moment. The next day, following the shootout, Mike asked Locke to move his son Mando somewhere safe. The information Mando had might help identify the traitor. Locke hesitated but eventually agreed, realizing how serious things had gotten under heavy police escort. Mando was loaded onto a helicopter. The moment it lifted off, Mike and Marcus were stripped of their weapons and comms, basically a low-cost flight with no snacks or Wi-Fi. Just then, Douglas and his men appeared in the cockpit. Douglas read a fake emergency message like some evil version of a TV news anchor. This is U.S. Justice Police Aircraft 724 declaring an emergency. The prisoner has escaped, aided by Miami officers Mike and Marcus. Shots fired. Officers down. Suspects are now attempting to hijack the CH-47. Requesting immediate response. Then bam, the pilot took a bullet to the head. Douglas grabbed Mike's gun from the safe. Sensing trouble, Marcus moved toward the cockpit to investigate, only to get kicked out by Douglas. Douglas used Mike's pistol to shoot the guards, then opened the rear hatch. Mike rushed him, and a brutal fight broke out. Marcus joined in, taking on the others. In the chaos, the windshield shattered, and the helicopter began to nosedive. One of the parachutes accidentally deployed, yanking a drug dealer right out of the aircraft. Dude didn't even have time to call Uber, he went straight back to Earth. But the fight between Mike and Douglas raged on. Realizing he couldn't win, Douglas triggered a switch that threw Mike out of the hold, then jumped out himself and detonated a bomb strapped to the engine. The chopper shook violently. The cage holding Mando broke loose. Mike lunged for the safety cable, Marcus dashed in to grab it from him, and Mike scrambled to unlock the cage just in time. Luckily, they crash-landed into a lake instead of solid ground. Call it a dramatic, wet version of mission accomplished. All three survived. But by the time rescue crews arrived, they were gone. After examining the bodies, authorities realized that Mike, Marcus, and Mando were missing. Combine that with the fake cockpit message Douglas broadcasted. Boom, Mike and Marcus were now framed as traitors working with drug dealers. The internet exploded. Memes probably already made it to TikTok. Even forensics confirmed the bullets that killed the guards matched Mike's gun. Within hours, 2 Miami legends were now the most wanted fugitives in the country. Meanwhile, Douglas, upon hearing they survived, placed a $5 million bounty on their heads. $5 million. You could buy loyalty, betrayal, and a beachfront condo in one move. Realizing they couldn't face this war alone, Mike and the crew paid a visit to an old friend, a bar owner who once had their backs. She greeted them warmly, then, once everyone left, pulled a gun on them. Turns out, $5 million speaks louder than friendship. She made one call, and they were surrounded, dragged outside by a gang of mercs. The trio quietly planned their escape. But before they could act, another gang showed up, because apparently, there's now a bidding war on their heads. They jumped into a nearby truck. The leader of this new group was none other than Man, a guy Mike had previously beaten to a pulp in the last movie. Man was furious and raised his weapon. Panicked, Marcus floored it and rammed the guy like they were playing real-life bumper cars. Mando smashed out a window and opened fire, taking down several thugs. The boys were back, and they weren't playing nice. Manny took the chance to light a Molotov cocktail and hurled it from the upper floor, setting off a fiery explosion. Marcus floored the gas pedal, trying to escape, but with poor visibility, the car veered wildly, crashing into everything in its path. Flames quickly spread inside the vehicle. Mando's clothes caught fire, so the father and son teamed up to put it out, a real father-son bonding moment, just with extra fire. Once they handled the flames, Mando kicked open the back door and booted the burning junk out of the car like he was in a firefighting kung fu class. Meanwhile, Judy arrived at the scene with the police after receiving a report. The moment she saw the car across from her, she instantly recognized the man who killed her father. Without hesitation, she raised her gun and opened fire. No dramatic pause, no deep breath, just full-on vengeance mode. At the same time, the fire reached the engine. Hearing Marcus screaming, everyone scrambled and jumped out just in time. Once again, surrounded by both gangsters and police, they pulled off another daring escape. Seriously, this crew makes Houdini look like an amateur. Later, the group tracked down a hacker using a lead HW gave them. If they could access the police system data, they might find a clue about the drug syndicate, since Mando had seen the ringleaders once. Guy's memory must be solid state. They printed out photos of suspicious individuals and had Mando go through them one by one. After a relentless search, they finally identified the man they were hunting. Don dug up some background. His name was Douglas, a former Army Ranger. Before 2005, he was deployed in Mexico, often involved in anti-drug operations, which is ironic, considering where he ended up. On one mission, Douglas was captured and tortured by drug lords to reveal his team. Everyone except him died. After that, he flipped sides and became one of them, from busting cartels to joining one. Plot twist worthy of a Hollywood movie. Learning this, Mike called Rita and reported everything they found. But that call was unfortunately overheard by Locke. Rita, not realizing the danger, casually mentioned their latest discovery, unknowingly setting off a major problem. Right after the call, Don spotted a fully armed hit squad gathering outside Mike and Marcus's home. He alerted the team via the surveillance system. Seeing the footage, Mike and Marcus panicked and tried calling their families to warn them, but no one picked up. Getting ignored during an emergency? That's trauma. Finally, Marcus reached his son-in-law Reggie and told him to get everyone out immediately. Reggie didn't hesitate. He hid his wife and mother-in-law in the dressing room, grabbed a gun from the safe, and went full action hero, faster than a SWAT team in an FPS game. Mike still couldn't reach his wife. At this point, Mike's phone was still unreachable, and it wasn't long before the hit squad had quietly broken into Marcus's house. But almost instantly, Reggie, a battle-hardened ex-Marine, sprang into action. With razor-sharp tactics and fluid movement, he took down all 9 intruders in a matter of seconds. Mando, watching the scene unfold on the monitor, couldn't help but cheer, like an uncle watching football when his team finally scores. Then someone knocked at his door. It was Cowley, HW's niece. While they were chatting, B saw the phone ringing and picked it up. "You need to hide, now," she yelled. But it was too late. Douglas and his men had already broken in. Mike and Cowley had no chance to react. They were subdued almost instantly. Douglas picked up the fallen phone and delivered a chilling message. If Mike wanted to see his wife and Cowley alive, he'd have to bring Mando in exchange, along with all the evidence HW had hidden. Mike was torn. He couldn't choose between sacrificing his wife or his son. How did it come to this? Then he had a gut feeling. Right after talking to Rita, Douglas moved in. That couldn't be a coincidence. He suspected Rita had leaked something, not intentionally, but through Locke. And Mike, still bitter, muttered, "It's not your fault, Rita. But man, your taste in men is just awful." Mike called her again and warned that Locke might be the traitor. Shocked, Rita ended the call and tried to keep her cool. She told Locke there was a new lead and that she needed to leave. Locke offered to accompany her. In the elevator, as Locke kept texting, Rita snatched his phone. Realizing he was exposed, Locke attacked her in a frenzy. A brutal fight broke out in the elevator. Rita struggled. She was no match for Locke physically. He pinned her down and started choking her. Just as she was about to pass out, the elevator doors opened. Don and Lisa arrived just in time. Lisa tackled Locke and knocked him out with a chokehold that would make any MMA fighter proud. When Locke came to, he was already tied up in front of Mike and Marcus. The team began crafting a rescue plan for B and Cowley, and a trap to take down Douglas. Now that they knew Locke had been leaking info, Mike used a voice modulator to impersonate him. He called Douglas, feeding him a story. Everything was compromised. They had to move immediately, and B and Cowley were being flown to Cuba for long-term holding, as leverage to keep the cops in check. Douglas didn't suspect a thing. He ordered his men to pack up and get ready to move. The guy bought the lie faster than a Facebook uncle clicks on crypto ads. Meanwhile, Mike's crew loaded up with weapons. This was it, a high-stakes mission. They had to succeed, not just to save the hostages, but to eliminate Douglas once and for all. They boarded a seaplane and headed toward the island where Douglas's hideout was located. Mando dove underwater with scuba gear for a stealth approach. Don and Lisa stayed outside, controlling drones to provide live updates on enemy positions. As they neared the abandoned amusement park, they spotted snipers on rooftops. And according to drone footage, there were also alligators in the surrounding waters, because, of course, what's a high-stakes mission without killer reptiles? The seaplane began descending. Mando was first in, stripping off his gear and readying for combat. Locke, still tied up, was pushed out as bait, the star of this fake exchange. Douglas, seeing Locke, brought out the hostages and his entire crew, unaware he was walking into a trap. Meanwhile, Mike had already lined up his sniper rifle, tracking Douglas through the scope. As the target got closer, Mike grew tense. Then, as if sensing something off, Douglas suddenly stopped in the middle of the bridge. Suddenly, the water's surface ripples violently. No doubt, the crocodile is back, and it's swimming straight toward Mando's hiding spot. Oh dear Lord. Douglas immediately orders his men to check it out. For Mike, this is the perfect chance to shoot, but he's so tense that he just can't aim properly. His hands are shaking like a student during a surprise test. As Douglas's men get closer, Mando is forced to open fire first. This pushes the team to switch to Plan B, full-on assault. Don quickly pilots the drone and drops a bomb, blowing up the rooftop sniper in an instant. With the threat gone, Mike and Marcus leap from the chopper and begin their raid on the amusement park. But in a moment of panic, Mike's trauma resurfaces, causing him to lose control. Marcus freaks out, "You bastard! You bastard, Mike!" But Mike knows, sometimes being a bastard just means being awesome. And with that, both men snap into action, storming through Douglas's henchmen like war machines on steroids. Not a single ounce of fear, just full combat mode. Meanwhile, Don uses the drone to blow up the getaway vehicle, cutting off the enemy's escape route. Amidst the chaos, Locke takes advantage of the distraction and forces the pilot to fly him out. Just as the plane lifts off, Rita raises her grenade-launching rifle, takes aim, and fires, hitting the wing and sending the plane shaking violently. At the same time, Mando takes out the drug dealer holding Kunlai hostage. But the damaged plane barrels forward, heading straight toward Dulus, who's dragging the little girl right past Mike. Without hesitation, Mike jumps from the upper level, shattering the glass below like a spider web. Marcus follows immediately after. As soon as he hits the water, the crocodile zeroes in and clamps its jaws onto Marcus's arm. Welcome to Florida, where even the wildlife wants a piece of the action. Mike grabs a broken metal bar and dives into the water, smashing the Krark's head repeatedly. Apparently, it's never met a man this aggressive. It gives up and swims away. As soon as the two escape danger, Mando finds himself surrounded by Dulus's men already injured. Mando is forced into hand-to-hand combat. He takes several more stab wounds during the brutal fight. Though he manages to take them all down, his left bleeding and barely standing. Kunlai rushes to help and supports him as they stumble out to the open field outside the amusement park. Meanwhile, while the others are finishing off the remaining drug gang, Locke suddenly ambushes them. Don gets shot in the arm. Locke sees Rita and foolishly believes she won't pull the trigger. A second later, she proves him wrong, blasting him straight into the Krark's dinner zone. Bon appetit. Police arrive at the scene, led by Agent Judy. As they search the area, she realizes her daughter is missing and panics. But then she spots her daughter's bracelet on the ground and follows the trail of blood. At the same time, Marcus and Mike are pushing Dulus into a corner. Marcus suddenly sees a vision, the exact one from his nightmare, playing out on the beach. Before he can even process it, a gun is pointed straight at his head. Mike rushes in to find Marcus has been taken hostage too, and now holding both of Mike's closest people. Dulus gets cocky, demanding that Mike choose which one dies first. Clearly, he doesn't understand Mike at all. Without a word, Mike shoots him dead. End of negotiation, they say. Know yourself and your enemy, and you'll win every battle. But Dulus? He didn't even study for the test. At that moment, Judy confronts Mando, the man who killed her husband. With no hesitation, she raises her gun. But just before she pulls the trigger, her daughter runs out and shields Mando with her own body, because Mando had risked his life to protect her earlier. Torn between vengeance for her husband and gratitude to her daughter's savior, Judy struggles. Eventually, her hand trembles, and she lowers the gun. Her daughter runs into her arms, and Mike hurries over to check on his injured son. Go. Before I change my mind, Judy says. Mike helps his son onto a small boat by the lake, hands him a card, and tells him to head south, and never look back. I got it, Dad, but if I don't behave, your words don't count, right? Mike watches his son's silhouette disappear into the distance, his heart tightening in pain. He doesn't want his son to ever return to a life behind bars. This is the only way, and so, in the final scene, all charges against Hal are dropped, and the ones who did wrong are brought to justice. Mike and Marcus continue their legendary partnership, defending the streets of Miami. The movie ends here, and who knows, maybe next time we'll get Bad Boys, Retirement Plan Edition.